Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Friday Forum. And it is Friday the 13th. And although that's an unlucky day, for us, it's a lucky day. It's a day in December, and it's a day where we're going to have our very last Friday Forum for this year. And I'm so excited that I'm going to talk about the business side of what we do as educational consultants. So as you're logging in, I want my guest, Katie, to hear and or to see where you're from. So please put your name and your location and anything else, that you want to put in there about yourself. Maybe tell us how long you've been working with students. Some of you are IECs, some of you are thinking about becoming IECs, some of you work in schools or other capacities, and we'd love to hear you share that as well. So today we're going to be talking about a very specific topic, and we're going to do some role playing. We're going to have all sorts of different things that we're going to do. So it's going to be a little different today. I hope you're reading your emails. I've been sending some emails out this week. I just want to mention a couple of things as everybody's getting in and getting started. The HECA Professional Development Institute, lovingly known as the PDI, there's a virtual institute we're going to have in January. It's January 21st and 22nd, totally virtual. If you haven't registered, please look into that. All levels of experience are welcome. We're going to have 4 different deans of admissions coming and doing activities with you: mock admissions committee activity, financial aid appeal activity, which is so important with so many of our families. We're going to have Greg Zeiser from Elon University and Stefano Papaleo from Lynn University talking about creating inclusive campuses. So it's going to be a very dynamic PDI. So don't miss out. Register. I just sent email about this. Carmen's going to put the link in there. We're also doing a survey. We want to know what your needs are, what's important to you, what things you take into consideration when you're making professional development decisions. So that survey closes tonight. So if you haven't done it, please do it. Those of you who have done it, thank you. We've gotten lots of responses. Your input is so valuable. It helps us so much to know what's going to be of benefit to you and what decisions you use to make that. And the last thing I want to announce, and I'll mention this again at the end as well, is that I've started up my workshops. The topic Katie and I are going to talk about today is going to be part of a workshop that I'm going to be doing in 2025. One of the most popular workshops that I do is Name Your Price. How do you set your rates? A lot of what we're talking about today is part of that mindset. And how do you change your mindset so that you can identify and set your pricing and your services? So that workshop, I've got one next week. It's on the 19th. Registration just opened. So um, sign up for that. I've also have one that's going to be in January. I'm setting up a whole list of different survey or different workshops, and those are all going to be available. Some of the registration is open now. Some I'm going to be opening registration soon. So I have a website that you can go to look at all those different places. So I see a question. Does someone have to be a member of HECA to do the PDI? No, it's open to members, non-members. $325 registration for members, $395 for non-members. If you're thinking about joining HECA, December is a great time to do it because then you get a full year plus membership. The membership in HECA goes from March to March. But if you join in December, it'll pull you into the other. And I just want to mention that all professional development is so important in all organizations. IECA, HECA, NACAC, any other organizations, NCAG, any other organization you belong to, I highly, highly recommend that. And what I do does not replace those professional organizations. I want to make that clear. That's something you hear me say over and over again. I just have a certain way, a certain approach. I've been doing this forever. And so I want you to be able to take advantage of everything out there. So Katie, it looks like we have people from all over here to come hear you. We have 80 people here today. So I think your topic is a bit of a popular topic. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say so. I'm surprised. I'm so happy to see people from all over LA and my even Florida, Missouri. Amazing. I love it.
And we often have international people as well. So, can you tell us how to say your last name, first of all, and tell us a little bit about yourself. Which came first? I know you're both an executive coach and you're also an IC. So, which came first? Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us how to say your last name.
Sure. So my last name is spelled like Jane, but it's really Janae. It has an accent on the E because it's from Spain. But being in the United States and growing up here on the Scantrons, when they used to say my name, you can't put accents. So forever, I've been having to correct my teachers and every single person says, Katie Jane, what's your last name? I'm like, Jane. Is that your last name? Yes. It's actually Janae. And after a while, I got sick of it. Now I have my married last name, which is Ferrer, which is still also not the best for living in the United States, but
Is it French? It looks French.
it's Spanish too. So,
Oh,
and now I get Ferrar, but it's okay. It's all right. And so to answer your other question, I first started out as an IEC and now transitioned to becoming an executive coach. And how that came about was I first became a college consultant because I used to work in advertising and I felt there was a big hole in my heart of feeling like I wasn't changing the world, I wasn't impacting lives, I was selling advertising, but it didn't really fill the void. And so I wanted to start my own business. And at the time, I wasn't sure what kind of business I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to help people reach their full potential, but I didn't know how. And when I came to the demographic as an advertising head, I was thinking demographics and, marketing strategies. And I said, okay, let's go through different age groups. At the time, I was in my early 20s. And so the idea of helping teenagers came about and I said, how do I help them reach their full potential? And then I said, oh my gosh, they're trying to figure out the two happiest problems in the world to solve, which is what do I want to be when I grow up? And what college am I going to go to? And I thought, okay, that sounds like fun, right? I want to solve happy problems. So I said, okay, what is that? And then I Googled, people that find colleges and careers, and then it was college counselor. And I never saw myself working at a school. And I said, okay, I'm just going to do private. And when I looked it up, it was a whole world of private college consulting business. I was like, great, it exists already. So I ended up doing the certificate program at UCLA for college counseling, which I saw there's a student here from there, which is awesome that she's here learning. Um, and and then I started, and it's been now 14 years. And in the process of helping high schoolers, I've come across all the families and the parents, and every time it almost with never fails, the parents say, "Can you help me figure out what I want to be when I grow up?" And I thought, wait, to me, I'm like, you know what you want to be, you're doing it. And a lot of them are at a crossroads. They're not really sure if what they're doing is what their heart wants to do, or if they have another plan, or if they're supposed to grow. And and then I also had my own children, and as they were growing up, and my schedule was more conflicting, working with students after school, with along with my own children, I said, how can I do this but work during the day while my children were at school? And then one of my clients happened to be an executive coach. And I didn't know this. I only knew her the way that she was with me as a transaction. And just speaking to her, she had this way of communicating and fulfilling her promises and delivering on all the things she said she was going to do in a way that to me was surprising. I wasn't used to that type of professionalism and person with such honesty and commitment for a stranger like me. We didn't even know each other. She was in Uruguay. And and then finally I asked her, I go, what do you do for a living? Because I'm amazed by your demeanor and the way that you do business and everything. And she said that she's does that. So I asked her, I inquired, I looked into it, I loved it. And so I went back and did another certificate program for ontological coaching. And then I realized that I can do the same type of coaching that I do for my students when I walk them through the self-discovery portion for adults. And so now I do it for corporate clients in big groups, and I do corporate trainings and team building and really helping them discover their full potential. So I didn't really derail too much. I'm just working with a different audience now. And we're all kids at heart. So I'm just helping everyone rise.
Yeah, I was going to say they're just, little kids in big bodies, right? So, and
We're
the,
all
and
trying
the,
to figure it out.
yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And it demonstrates that everything we do, I've watched our industry shift and some of the terms shift. And so much of what we do is from a coaching perspective. We talk about being advisors or counselors, and there are certain connotations that come with those different terms. But the coaching is something that really has been evolving over the last years. So I love that you've done that and have expanded and applied those same principles. They apply in both directions. And there is a lot of satisfaction in both working with the students, the adolescents, but also adults. And then that's something that I've been doing the last couple of years too. And I actually went and did started a certificate program for life coaching and found it very enlightening and just so fulfilling. So today we want to narrow this down a little bit, and we're going to talk about the prospect's journey. So my approach is to have, as entrepreneurs or as advisors, whether you have your own business or not, is there are four different aspects. So you have your organization's journey, you have your journey as an advisor, you also have your client's journey or the student's journey once they become a client. And then the last one is the prospect's journey. So that's what we're going to talk about today is how do you get people in the door? And one of the most pivotal points is what we call that inquiry call, excuse me, or inquiry or initial consultation. So we're going to talk about that. I'm sure people have questions about that as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to launch a poll. So there's 5 questions. I want you to look through. Don't pause on them. This is not exact science. We just want to get your sense. And it also will give us an opportunity to generate conversations. So let me launch this poll. And Katie, is there anything you want to mention before I do that or words you want to add?
No, I think as college counselors, one thing to remember and something I didn't realize when I was selling our services is that you are a coach and you are a counselor above the college admissions process. You really guide students, and I think that's part of at least for me, that's not something that I would, it wasn't a hard sell for me. And so, but I noticed that for me, that was and for my students and families, that was the biggest takeaway they got from me. It never was like, oh, you did a great job on that essay, or like, oh, you really helped me find the right schools. No, it was like you helped me see my potential, and I was able to to get better grades. I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. I looked at a school I never would have considered. You opened my mind to things, and all of that is the role of a coach when you help them become open-minded and see what they're capable of. So don't underestimate that in your sales process, which we'll talk about now.
I love you're talking about so often in our industry, we feel like sales is a four-letter word, that we don't want to be salespeople. We're not selling our service. That's seen as a very negative thing. But when you're sharing from a coaching perspective, as you just mentioned, you're sharing your passion. There's nothing wrong with sharing your passion. And that's all sales is about, is sharing your passion. So that part I absolutely want to emphasize because I totally agree with you. And the other thing that you said that I want to emphasize is we're not just here to help students put in applications. If that's all you're doing, then you have a very narrow perspective. And my students in my UCLA class know and understand that. I emphasize that a lot. It's kind of one of my soapboxes. We do more than just college counseling. We are counseling with teens. We are counseling with families, and that coach perspective, helping them broaden their perspective, as you said, is just so key. So that, yeah, Carmen's like, she never would have gone to Hoboken if Stevens Institute was not a college that she never even heard of, and yet it turned out to be one of the best options. All right, so I'm going to launch this poll so we can talk about managing prospective clients. And there's 5 questions. So just go through and answer the first questions. I'll give you one answer. And yes, I know there are lots of different ways that people hear about you, but just pick one. And again, this is not meant to be scientific. It's just to get your impressions and see what and then the other benefit of doing this poll is then you can see where other people are coming from, that you're not the only one. So go through and answer these. The more answers we get, the more representation we have. And then Katie and I are going to do a little bit of a role play. So, and she's going to role play an initial inquiry conversation. And one of the things we really want to talk about today is what you do in those sessions. I know from other surveys that I've done, and past 2 years we did a survey, then I know that there's different approaches that people have. So let's talk about what you do and how that does. So, Katie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, let's start with that. I just want to point out that when me and Cindy begin our role playing, Cindy has reached out to me and over the phone and was referred to me by her friend and would like to meet with me. So I sent her a link to my calendar, and here we are.
And thank you for explaining that. And I think that's really an important aspect, is to understand what the process is and how people get in contact with you in the first place, and then where that goes. In our industry, there are 2 terms that we'll hear, and oftentimes they're used interchangeably. One is an inquiry, whether it's an inquiry through a website, a form, social media, whatever. And then the other term is initial consultation. And I'll explain after we go through all this, I'll explain a little bit about what my initial consultation is. It's very similar to what Kitty does, but it's different too. And I want to emphasize that everybody has a different approach, and that is fine. You have to do what works for you. But a lot of times, no, if you can have the same results and close a higher number of your clients in shorter amount of time, that's going to be the goal. And so looks like we've got 87% of people have participated. I'm going to give everybody just probably about another 10 seconds. If you haven't answered, quickly go through. I'm glad to see people are not answering the I don't know. Sometimes we are in that situation, especially when we start off. But it looks like everybody has some perspective. So, any other things while people are finishing up, Katie, that you'd like to add?
Well, when I was in high school and college, I was a sales counselor at a fitness center. And I always laughed at the title they would give me and say, call me a sales counselor. And say, why are they calling me a sales counselor? Why just not membership salesperson or, salesperson or, something like that? I always wondered why the counselor was in there. And it wasn't until I started actually working that I understood why counselor is in there. And as I would walk these members through the tour and hear their stories, and then when we would get into my office, they would we would build such a rapport and they would pour their heart and soul to me that I would realize the initial 5 seconds when they told me they came to the gym because they wanted to lose 10 pounds ended up being they wanted to go to the gym because they just got over a really bad breakup and they don't know what to do. And they would be crying in my office and spilling their guts out to a total stranger because that's what feels okay. And I would sit there and empathize with them and listen to them and just try my best to help them in whatever way I could. And every time, without fail, if I did a good job, I'd know that what they originally came to you for is not really what they said they came to you for. And the same rule applies in college counseling many times. And so the purpose of this role play that we're going to do now is really to get an understanding of what's really going on, to understand how you can best serve your client.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. All right, so let's go. I'm going to go ahead and share the results. So we had about an 88% participation, and everybody should be seeing this. Are you able to see the results? What I see is slightly different than what you're going to see. So, but you're seeing the results. Katie, I see you shaking. Okay.
Yeah.
And everybody
Yeah,
else
we can see the
see.
results.
You can. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Oh, it says it flashed briefly. It should be back on. Is it still back on? Christy, can you see it? I see you in the chat. Not yet. All right. Oh, she got it. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So the first question was, what is the most common way prospective clients find out about your services? No big surprise. Referrals. This is such a referral based industry. And all the other ways as you grow and build your practice, you're going to need to go beyond the referral, but the referrals is always going to be a big major part. Looks like some people have website. Looks like not many people are using LinkedIn. I would advocate that's a missed opportunity. That's something I'll talk about again another day. And then other. So someone said other. Maybe there's workshops you do. Maybe there's webinars. Maybe there's a podcast. So if there's another way, put it in the chat so other people can see what's working for you. What is the most common way prospective clients reach out to your organization? Email used to be always just phone calls, and it's interesting to see that email has taken a little bit more of a precedent over phone calls. Setting appointments. I love seeing this. That saves you time, their time. If you don't have an appointment link, or you can send people link to your calendar, that's number one thing you should be doing for 2025. Set that as your goal because it can save you so much time. And then having an inquiry form on your website, Facebook, landing pages, wherever it is, that's another aspect. So Katie, what do you observe about this aspect from a sales and other marketing perspective? What would your comments be on that?
I think a lot of it has to do with geography and the background of the families that you're working with. So, for example, a lot of my families are from South America, and email is not really the thing. They're more of face to face and phone people. So
Hmm.
I'll get a WhatsApp, right? They'll send
Hmm.
a WhatsApp. Very little times do I get emails, but I can see how emails could be very productive and easier for people that live in the US, or even abroad too, that just are better in communicating through email.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
I
I
think
agree
that's
with you 100% on the calendar of the website. That has been a game changer for me ever since. I feel like I earn like I get so happy when I get an email with an appointment request. It always makes me so happy. And that's an absolute must.
mhm. Yeah. And especially, if you're working with any kind of international, the WhatsApp is definitely one. Okay, I'm still not sure if this is really showing up or not. Um, let's see. So I'm gonna stop sharing and then I'm gonna start sharing again. So it should be on there.
Yes, it showed up for me.
Okay. All right. Okay. So how do you meet? And I think this has definitely taken a change since COVID, but even anyone who's working with international clients, long time ago. I mean, people have been meeting with Skype way before Zoom came onto the scene. So meeting in person is still something some people do, but virtually has really taken off. And I think that's really beneficial because then you can market and you can have clients anywhere, and so having that in person virtually, sometimes it is nice to do things in person if you can, but if you have a broad practice or work with a broad group of students, that's not going to be practical. How long is your first meeting? This is a key thing. I want you guys to look at these numbers, and Katie and I are going to show you up to 15 minutes with your first meeting with our prospective clients. And I define that as that inquiry contact. Hey, I've heard about you. I want to learn more. If you're spending up to 90 minutes with somebody in that first contact, you're spending too much time. It's hard. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to show you. But up to 30 minutes looks like the most popular one, up to 60 minutes. It's easy to do. I try to keep my inquiry to 20 minutes or less. So within that 15, 20 minutes, I don't go beyond that. If I can keep it at 10, basically, here's who I am. Basically, how did you hear about me? Set up an appointment on my calendar and we'll talk more. And that's pretty much what that ends up being. What do you focus on an inquiry meeting? Description of services, cost and services, college knowledge, college list. I'm glad to see that, it's really hard to do a list in that a first initial meeting. And so we're going to talk about other things that you can do, benefits of service, ethics and standards, answering questions. So that is the key right there. 74% focus on answering questions. So that is part of what we're going to talk about. And other. So I'm interested to know if you put down other for question number 5, write what that is. And I love, share what your inquiry is, what your process is. It can be a 1-step, it can be a 1-2-step, things like that. Again, everybody is what you're most comfortable with is what's going to be the most beneficial. But focusing on certain things, if you shift what you're focusing on, you can see how that's going to benefit you. So, Katie, from this whole poll, what are your thoughts and what is your take on what we see here from our audience?
Well, so far in the virtual meeting versus in person, I'm not surprised. That's where everything is going, and I agree. The question about how long the first inquiry contact should be, you know, it to me, it should be no more than 10 minutes, as you said too, Cindy. There should be no, it's impossible to go through a proper consultation in 10 minutes. And to do more than that on a whim at under the first contact with that the client has with you, you're doing a disservice to yourself because you're missing out on potentially closing that sale just because you feel like in that moment you have to answer all those questions. And so 30 minutes, it's a lot, and 60 minutes, it's hard. But I'm wondering if some participants are got it confused to think that that was part of the initial consultation, like after they've inquired and now they're in that first inquiry. So if that's the case, I agree with 30 minutes. But I think at first contact, absolutely not. And then on the next question of what do you focus on in an inquiry meeting? Again, for me, the inquiry meeting is once we've already established a time to speak. I'm actually surprised that 74% is answering questions and 82% is description of services. Because for me, it's the opposite. It is 20% describing what I do and 80% asking them questions. So I will answer all the questions inevitably when I describe my services. But initially, in order for me to describe my services appropriately, I need to know what are they looking for. So it's like me and you were talking about, Cindy, when you were giving demos on Guided Path, there's a million different features on that application, a software. You can't cover that in one consultation. So you have to ask questions to find at least 3 things that client is most interested in, and then that's where you shift your focus on, because that's where they're going to be asking you the most questions.
Right.
That's where I sit with these.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I appreciate everybody, those that have put in kind of how they approach it. I noticed Becky Grappo has that she charges for initial appointments. I do too. The initial, that first inquiry is like 10, 15 minutes. And I'll explain a little bit more what I do with that. But the first thing I do is send them a link, and already on my calendar, they can do an initial consultation. And I started charging for those years ago because I wanted people to find value in it. And in one of my coaching clients, when she started charging for her initial consultation, her close rate actually went up. And so that's something else that is quite an industry discussion of whether you charge for that or not. I have for many years. I totally agree. There's definite benefit to doing that. But going back to what you said, certain areas, certain audiences, you may not be appropriate for you. But it all comes back to what your goal is, what your mindset is, and how you portray it. So let's take some time and let's do the role play. And let's talk about this, because the listening versus sharing all your services, that is just so hard to do. And as you said, it might not be meeting people's needs. It might be not be answering their questions. The reason they're coming to you may be totally different when they present in the very beginning. So I'm a parent. I have a daughter. Her name is Carol. She goes to a private school in LA. She's an 11th grader. And I just I reached out to you. You sent me my link, and I just reached out to you, and we're having our very first meeting. So that sets the stage for where we're at. Is that correct, Katie?
Yes, and Carol is sitting next to you. She's just invisible. So I make sure.
Exactly. Imagine, yes. And I think that's an important point. So explain that. Do you ever
Yeah.
meet with parents without their students?
No. So many parents will call me and say they want to set up a meeting, or I notice that they schedule a session in the time that their child would be in school unless they're homeschooled. And when that happens, I reach out and I say, "Hey, I saw you and you made an appointment with me. I just want to make sure that you and your child and whoever will be involved in the college admissions process will be present." And they say, I was hoping my daughter wouldn't be in the call because there's some things I want to talk to you about." And most of the time that I get that call, it's usually because there's something more complicated in that situation.
Mhm.
Could be a health issue, mental health or physical health, or some type of disability that the child is going through or has. It could be that the child is rebellious right now, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to get them and convince them to do this. And then what ends up happening in my cases, when I used to decide to take on the call with the parent only, is that when the student would come on the call later, they would know that the parent met with me and told me everything already about the child, and the child would then feel like they lost their chance to shine because the parent has disclosed the hindrances, which in my experience, and I'm sure you've all experienced this too, students that come with disabilities are some of the most um, uh, driven, um, like they just are, what's the word I'm looking for? Resilient. They're
Mhm.
just so resilient and looking to prove everyone wrong. So when a parent calls out the child's disability ahead of time, the student feels like they've now lost a chance to prove themselves to me. And that's why I try to not take that call by themselves.
Mhm.
So that's what I do. And so now we are here in the meeting. I made sure that Cindy is going to be with her daughter Carol, and we're in the call. Okay.
I'm so glad to meet with you, Katie. We've been looking forward to this. We've heard about you from all our friends. We know that you've helped all their children, and they're going to really, they're going to Stanford and Harvard and all these phenomenal colleges. So we want to be able to. We're wondering, first of all, if we're starting too late. Is the junior year too late to get this done? I feel like as a parent, there's so many things to do that I don't know what we need to do. So that's why we've come to you.
Great. I'm so happy to meet you, Cindy. So I just want to let you know, 11th grade is usually the time when people find out about me. So I would say that you are on time, not the best time, but on time to get on the road with where we need to be. You still have 2 years to work, for Carol to work on her high school career plans and plan out what those 2 years are going to be looking like. So if the past 2 years or even in eighth grade, her trajectory wasn't that great, we can turn things around. And so, tell me a little bit about what do you know about the college admissions process?
Well, I went through it when I was, after I graduated from high school, but then I ended up transferring. So I ended up different colleges. And I know it's a lot harder now than it used to be when I went through the process. So I just have what I know is what I hear from my friends and what Carol's friends have gone through. She had some friends that graduated last year, and she watched them go through and do lots of applications, stress out a lot about deadlines and which college to apply to early, but I don't really understand what that is. And her dad and I are considering moving, so that's a consideration for her. So there are a lot of different aspects that we don't know about this.
Moving abroad or staying in the country?
We are considering, he's got some offers and opportunities to maybe go to London. So that's something we're looking at.
Okay. And on that topic, are you open to the idea of having Carol explore universities out of out of her city, out of state, abroad? What are the options that you as a family have discussed or are open to?
Yeah, Carol, and she's as she's saying is that she'd love to go to a college abroad, so she's very open to that idea. Um, England, Scotland. She's heard some things about Netherlands, so she hasn't looked in South. We haven't looked at South America per se, but the world's the limit. We're pretty open.
That's awesome. Yeah, I did a couple study abroads myself, and I love to teach my students about all the different ways that you can experience the world without necessarily feeling like you need to move there in case there's still some, shyness about it or like that it's such a big move. So I'm glad that you're open to it too, because that it takes a family, it takes it's a family affair, but I always say at the end, the student is the one that's going to be living with the decision for the rest of their life. So, yes, the family is we're all involved in the process, but that will definitely empower her to feel that she can explore all her options. So, Carol, tell me what concerns you about the college admissions process right now.
So I'm going to put my hat on as Carol. It's like, um, what we should do is have Carmen come in here and do this. But I don't know if I should be doing which classes I should take. I'm not, I have a lot of activities that I'm involved in, but are there activities that I should do more? And my mom and dad keep telling me I should go and do more for Habitat Humanity, but that's not really something I'm really interested in. So it doesn't matter what I do in activities. Those are some of the concerns I have and classes to take. There's IB at my school, but I haven't really done AB. I've done some AP. I'd like to take some classes at the community college or online, but during COVID, I discovered I don't really learn online very well. So those are some of my concerns that I have, questions that I have.
Okay. And do you know what career or majors you've been looking at or you're inclined towards?
I have no idea.
No idea. Okay, and then I'd come back to mom. Cindy, what do you and your husband do for a living? What's your background?
I am a small business owner. I have my own business, and my husband is a business consultant for a large consulting firm.
And Carol, have you ever worked with your mom and dad and seen if you like it or are you inclined to explore what they do?
Um, yeah, I mean, I've helped my dad do some things. I've done some business trips with him once in a while. I've helped my mom a lot. I help her with some of the social media that she needs and um, those kinds of things. So I've seen the business side. I don't know if that's what I really want to do. I do enjoy the psychology behind, like what motivates people to do things or how they manage their emotions. I've taken AP psychology at school, so that's something a little more interested in.
Awesome. You could be like me. And so mom, what concerns you about this process? What do you feel you can utilize me for?
Well, I we want to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. We want to, since things are different now, we don't know what that process is. So we feel like having somebody to help us would be helpful. And um, I don't have time because I own my own business. I don't have time to look into all the different things. Carol often comes home and asks me questions or has questions from her school counselor, but neither one of us often we don't have the answers. So being able to have somebody that can ask questions and can also help um, our daughter to have a really good rest of her high school career. You know, it's been stressful. The idea of moving is exciting, but it's also stressful. So that's the other aspect that we're just going into as we go into the end of the junior year and into the senior year.
Okay. And are what are your wishes for her in terms of what kind of college experience you want her to have? Do you want her, are you aiming for her to get into an Ivy League school, or are you looking for her to have another type of experience? What are your wishes for her without imposing on Carol, but just, what kind of college experience would you love for her to have?
That's a really good question. And that's why I wish my husband were here so he could, we could have that conversation together. So we'll probably come back to that. But I want her to have a full experience. I want her to match her potential in terms of she's at a highly rigorous school now. So I know she could handle a rigorous college. So I don't want her to just settle for any kind of college. I want her to be able to apply and be in a really rigorous program. Um, Ivy League, if that turns out, great, that's fine, but it's not the top priority for us. Um, we have visited some schools. She has some schools that she likes. Carol, you've felt like University of Miami, Boston College, you've been to different schools, Whitman, Southwestern, different colleges. We kind of like the colleges that change lives approach. So we've been looking at those in different parts, as we visited different parts of the country. So we want it to be competitive, mostly so that it can meet her the level that she's at. She's highly capable. She
Mhm.
has had a 504 plan, so she's had some accommodations as she's gone through school. Sometimes those have been helpful, sometimes they haven't. That's why we've worked really closely with the school. It's part of the reason she's at a private school now, because the public school wasn't quite as accommodating as we felt like she needed. So those are some, and can you take a 504 into a college? And you have those same kind of things. She doesn't have an IEP, but our son has an IEP. So, we've dealt with both aspects. So those are some of the things that we're looking at.
Well, good. It looks like you've done your homework knowing what CL colleges are. What colleges that change? Yeah. So I'm going to share with you what I do. Based on everything you've shared with me, it looks like I absolutely can help you. So let me just share a little bit about what I do, okay?
Okay, that would be great.
All right. So I like to break up what I do into 4 phases. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So the first phase is self-discovery. This is where I get to know your student and the pillar of the work that I do. If I don't know your child, what good is it for me to check an application just to check for revisions of grammatical errors? You can do that at your school. That's not a problem. The reason why you would have someone like me is to know your child well enough to know if their story is representing is the best representation of their story, to know that their application is the best representation of their story. And so in this self-discovery, we do many different types of assessments. And really my goal is to make sure that their social skills, their social preference, their academic ability, and the financial ability is all there. And once we have some type of cohesion there, then we can make recommendations for the future. But in the self-discovery phase, we identify their strengths, their skills, their interests. We help them build a resume, plan out what the next couple years of high school is going to look like, and really challenge them to push themselves to try new things. And if they don't have any idea of where to look or what to do for summer programs or career options, this is where we really dive in to help figure out which would be the best fit majors and careers for the student. And based on those recommendations, then we can help tailor the plan during high school. And it's not about what's going to look best on the resume for college. It's really about literally self-discovery. It's for them to try and experience different things to see what they ultimately like. And then if we find that, then they can hone in on that. And that can help them, obviously, with their college application. The next phase is a college search. This is where we do an in-depth analysis to find the best fit colleges for your daughter. And I think it's important to note in my services, I know you mentioned that you were referred by friends that got into Ivy League schools. My role in my practice in particular is not aimed for Ivy League admissions. It is really about best fit. So even if you have the wishes to go to an Ivy League school and I don't feel it's the best fit for you, I will let you know. And it's not to say that my students haven't been to Ivy League schools, and it's not to say that your student's not the best fit for it, but that is not how I run my practice. So I want you to just be understanding of that, because that's not my goal. My goal is to make sure your child is reaches their best potential and is on the path that they choose to go to, and that we can provide the resources for that. So in the college search, we'll provide a list of universities, and then we go into phase 3, which is the college application process. Here I help with the whole college admissions process. I do want to know I'm not responsible for deadlines, so your child does have to be responsible. So Carol, listen up. I need you to know, if you want to work with me, you have to be responsible and on top of your game to attend our meetings on time, to hit your deadlines, and you will be having homework. But a good thing is that you'll have it in a timely manner, so you're not rushing and procrastinating. So I'll help you stay on track, but you will need to put your commitment and fair share into this with me, and in order for this to be successful. So that's why you're on the call. And we'll be helping you with your essay. So I do not write your essay, just so you know. I help you brainstorm for your essay to make sure you are getting everything out that you want to say. And if you're going to go visit schools, I help you coordinate that and find the right questions to ask while you're on the tour to make the most out of it. And then I also have a portal that helps you keep track of all applications. The parent has access to it, the student has access to it, and it's also an incredible research tool that you'll be able to use as you start exploring new colleges. And then we move into the scholarship and financial assistance. This part is optional. Not all families would like financial assistance, but if you do, I educate you on the difference between grants, financial aid, scholarships, subsidized, unsubsidized, different state scholarship programs. And I can also help you revise the FAFSA application and the CSS profile, which are the financial aid applications. So what we would do next, I'm going to stop sharing here, is I would, if I want you to think about it and talk about it with your family. And then you're going to tell me if you'd like to move forward. And if you do, what would be the next step is we would start off with the self-discovery phase. That's a 10-hour block. And I can go over the cost in session with you or off session with you if you'd like for me to share it in front of your child. If not, we can do it off session. And after that, I will, if you say yes, then I will send you an agreement via email with some information that I would need for you to submit before our session. And we shall begin. And then after the self-discovery phase, if it all goes well and Carol likes me and I like Carol, then we shall continue. And that can either take the form of more hours or a comprehensive program, which we can discuss when the time comes. Have I answered your questions? What else can I help you with?
Oh, you have definitely, Katie. And Carol said she said she'd love to do this. She'd love to work with you. So we're anxious to get started. I'll talk to my husband and then we'll come back and go to the next step. How long before we should come back to you? Do I have a couple of months to think about this?
So we're in December and you're a junior, which means that come spring, Happy New Year, you should be building your college list, your essay, and starting your application early. And so today you should start, but if you if you want to wait till after the holidays, I would, I think the first week when you come back should be like the decision day for you.
Okay. Great, great. That sounds great. Okay, so you went through a lot of different things, and I can already see we have some questions here, Katie. But I want to notice how you didn't tell me what your services were. You just asked a lot of questions, and in a real consultation, you would be focusing a lot of that on Carol, correct? Since we
Yeah.
didn't have two people, it made it a little more difficult. But how much time do you spend focusing on the student versus the parent in your session?
The student, I would say about 20%. It depends. Sometimes the students are chattier, but initially they tend to be a little shy. And so I
Mhm.
have to kind of, you know, like bring out bring out some answers. But usually it's about, 20% student, 80% parent. And
Mhm.
in the course of the 30-minute consult, it's usually 80% listening and asking questions and 20% explaining what I do.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And the from a marketing sales perspective, you should always be focusing on the benefits of your service rather than just explaining rates and contracts and things. You put all of that at the very end, and that made it much more comfortable. And I brought up different topics. We might be moving. She has a 504, all those different things go back to what you said before, is there's a lot going on underneath. And how long do you spend doing this consultation that we just demonstrated?
30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then explain how you make them realize that they shouldn't sit on this. That's why I asked the question, like, oh, do I have 2 months to do this?
Yeah.
How do you create scarcity for your families?
Well, it's not intended to be this way, but this is
Mhm.
how I run my practice because I'm also an executive coach. I only have a limited time to do college consulting. So I let them know that I work with a limited number of students every year myself. And so if they'd like to directly work with me, I do have some openings for students. But that's not to say that 2 months from now they come back and I won't be available. So I that alone lets them know like it's not it, this is what it is. And then the other thing, you know, I think the other thing that really just always and I'm also just being really sincere is when at the end you said how soon or what do I got to do? I said, well, you're in December right now, junior year. Like that's it. This is it. Like if you don't act now, oh well, the other thing I say is listen, I don't take seniors. I don't take new I if you're coming on board with me, you're coming on as a junior or earlier. If you come as a senior, it's literally just for maybe a essay brainstorm, maybe. But to be honest with you, unless I have time for self-discovery, I don't do it because it's too much to work on. And unless I had the time and I didn't have enough clients, maybe I'll take on a senior. But in my experience, I'd have to start with the senior in August, catch them up to speed so that in September we just immediately go into applications. But they also have to come in with a college list if they come in senior year. So I tell them
Mhm.
if you want the take advantage of what I have to offer, this is it. That you want to start now. And then I also say you have to think about my services not as money spent for a service, but as an investment.
Yeah.
You are in investing in me, you are saving thousands, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars of missed opportunities that could have cost you scholarship dollars, universities that you could have overlooked, applications that you might have not done your best on, essays that didn't really tell a story. Just so many, and majors and careers that students thought they wanted to do that then once they're in college want to change their mind 2 or 3 times, and you've already paid for tuition for that first year, second year, and their career ends up becoming a 6-year bachelor's. And so with all of that, it's the reason why you have a lawyer represent you in court. You can do it yourself, but you might not have all the information and knowledge to present your case the best.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely. And all of the sharing your services, contract, all of that, all can come later. And so the more you focus on whether it's a 1-step inquiry or a 2-step, the more you focus on questions, the more opportunities you're going to have. And the more of those parents and the student are going to feel like they've been listened to. I know in my sessions, I have a 10-page, a page that I go through. I used to have a folder when I did in person, and now virtual, it's through a presentation, but I don't spend time on a presentation. But my goal in an initial consultation is to get affirmation from the student at least 4 to 5 times. Usually I'll get up to 6, where I was like, here's something asking those same kind of questions. What are you worried about? I'm worried about what classes I'm going to take. My friends say I do this and I've got to do that. Well, here's some approaches that we can take. That's something I can help you with. Would that make you feel better? Yes, it would. And then at the very end, after I've gotten 3 or 4 or 5 affirmations saying, yeah, that would be really good. Yeah, I think that would help me. Yeah, that would make me feel much better. Then I'll point blank ask the student, would this be helpful? I can't work with you if this is not something you're invested in. This is not about you. It's not about your parent. I mean, it's not about me. It's not about your parents. It's about you. And so if you're willing to put in the work, I would love to work with you. And this is where the other question that comes up a lot, is it a good fit for you and that student and that family? That might be and it might not be. So it gives you an opportunity to kind of make that decision. I would love to work with you, or I don't know that I can really help you. Like if I had said Ivy League or bust, you probably would have said, well, I'm not the best person to work with you. And then you can refer them on. So being able to, but once I get those affirmations, do you think people are worried about what the cost is going to be when they've heard their child say several times, yeah, this would be helpful for me? We're still going to work on, costs and everything, and I'll have that conversation, but that's not the primary focus.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's not all about what you know or what you do or how you do it. It's all those things. So I have a graphic that's going to be in the show notes. That's like, you do you. You guys have confidence in who you are and what you have to offer. And it doesn't matter how many other people are going to be in your town or coming in, or big companies, you're still going to offer what you offer in a very unique and special way. So, in closing, I know we're kind of going over time. What are your best words of advice for people, Katie? What one thing would you give as a word of advice?
I would say, just remember that you have your own attributes. Everyone in this room has the knowledge they need to know to do college admissions and college consulting. But only you have that, plus your own personal attributes, that makes you unique and a good fit for certain types of students that will love you and appreciate you. And that is the reason why I have students as well join in the session, because I want to see if they like me. Because if they don't like me, they're not going to work with me. They're not going to be open and vulnerable, and they're not going to share. And if they don't, we're going to clash. So it's important for you to just be who you are and let it be known, because you might not be the best fit for everyone and they might not say yes. And that's perfect, because that means you weren't a good fit from the beginning. If you're in good spirits and you're representing your best self in this session, you're going to get what you are supposed to get. You're going to get that client that you're going to love. Somebody asked a question when I briefly looked through the chat, if I only do if my only offering is a self-discovery, and it is. And the reason why that is my initial only offering is because in my experience, this has happened before, where I start working with a student where I just met on one initial consultation, and the student says yes out of obligation from the parents. And once we start working together, I realized we weren't a good fit for each other. And once we commit to a full comprehensive package, it's too late. So I do the 10-hour block so you can at least walk away with something tangible. But if it doesn't work out, I'm not committed to you all the way, and neither are you. And I can say, hey, this was great, but I think that this student might be better off working with another person. That I think my style is a little bit different. And we all have our styles, and that's what makes you unique. So embrace it. Don't try to copy someone else's, because the inauthenticity will show no matter what.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's so much more. I mean, we could spend a whole lot of time on this, and there's so many other directions we could go, as you and I have spoken. So people watch, we'll have other opportunities. And this is why I'm going to do a 3-hour workshop on this that I'll be offering in 2025, so that we can do this a little bit of role play or conversation structure and things like that, practice this. So thank you, Katie, very much. Carmen, you turned your camera on. Is there any one last thing that we should cover, or
Yeah, I guess just the question before we wrap up is, Katie, everyone's curious. Do you offer coaching services to IECs?
Yes, I was just telling Cindy this. I would love to create a workshop to help my fellow IECs with this. So absolutely, if you're interested, I'll put my email in the chat, and you can email me, and maybe sometime soon we can create a workshop where we can all come together and explore this even further.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Katie and I were actually even talking about doing it in person. So watch for a poll, if that's something you'd be interested in. Maybe we'll just go to Miami and do that. What do you think, Katie?
Come down, come on down. I can show you around.
So everybody, thank you for being here today. This will be published on my website and the YouTube channel. Katie will have it on her channel. Come back in January. I'm very honored. We're going to be doing a session on January 10th. It'll be our first 2025 Friday Forum. We're going to talk about virtual reality and working with adolescents. I actually have my daughter who's going to be coming, and she's been pioneering this in her therapy practice that she has in Utah. So thank you for watch for information on that. And then, yes, as I mentioned at the beginning, please do the survey if you haven't done it yet. Look into the HECA PDI if you haven't done that. UCLA, I'm going to be sending an email out about the UCLA classes. Those will be starting in winter if you need those. And if there's other things you want me to let people know, please send it to me. I'm always glad to do that. And happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all wonderful wishes for a wonderful time with your families during this holiday season. So we'll be back in January. Hope to see some of you next week at my workshop on Name Your Price and future workshops as well. So thank you, Carmen. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, everyone. I have the very best audience in the world. So glad
Bye,
to have you here.
Thank you. And I'm so sorry, my computer just died and I'm calling back now.
Yeah, that happens. All right. This ends our webinar for today. Everybody have a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone.